everybody. We are live, and this is Dreadful Talk, episode 35. I'm really excited for this one, and I think our guest will be joining us shortly. We do have a guest this week, but yeah, this is episode 35 of Dreadful Talk, coming to you live. Like I said, most of the time it's Wednesday. Every once in a while, it may end up being a Thursday due to some kind of conflict. But yeah, let's get this week's guest on here. I think you guys are really going to like this week. Well, I'll get you on right here in a second. Sorry, I usually do this on Instagram, so Facebook works a tiny bit different. There we go. It says it's connecting, and there we go. How are you doing?
Hey, Dominic, good to see you.
Good to see you. You mind turning that phone sideways for me, or are you on a computer?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Perfect.
Hey.
Whatever you're on, that works fantastic, and it's good to see you. It's good to hear your voice. This is episode 35 of Dreadful Talk, and this is this week's guest, Mary Springfield. And we're going to be talking, she practices Jiu Jitsu, and I'm a big fan of, what she does. I'm a big fan of combat sports and women's combat sports in particular. And we're going to talk a little Jiu Jitsu. We're going to talk a little life. And we're just, we're going to chop it up and do what we do here on Dreadful Talk. But yeah, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. I'm having a little bit of feedback loop from you, but that's okay.
It's okay. You can hear me good and everything?
I can hear you on top of you talking now.
That's weird. Well, you'll have to bear with me. I apologize. I wonder, you know what? That helps. Okay, it was coming through the speakers and through the headphones. We're gonna try it without headphones this week, and we'll see how this turns out. But you can hear me just fine. That's really what matters.
Good.
All right, awesome. And yeah, so this is Mary Springfield, and yeah, I want to appreciate you for coming on and taking some time, and appreciate to everybody that's watching live or is not watching live and is watching this on my YouTube channel. Feel free to go subscribe at it's Dreadful Talk Podcast on YouTube, and or you can find me on the audio wherever you like listening to your audio podcast. But yeah, Mary, we're here to talk a little bit of jiu-jitsu and just kind of your story and your experiences and things you've learned through the journey that I imagine has been your career and your practicing of jiu-jitsu. And we'll just start off with, when did you start jiu-jitsu and how did you get into jiu-jitsu?
So it's really funny because I was not into it whatsoever whenever I first started out. It's funny, my family does it together. There's my dad, my brother, my uncle, my two cousins, and my aunt all do it. So it's a family affair at this point. It's a cult, honestly.
No, that's awesome. And that seems to be common in the jiu-jitsu community. I mean, it's very common that you see families and legacies. I mean, even like most jiu-jitsu gyms have the name Gracie somewhere on them, and they're like a family that's kind of branched out across the country. And so, yeah, I think you guys are kind of just continuing. I think that's common.
Yeah, it's funny. My lineage from my black belt is from a Gracie black belt, so Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So it's really cool to have that like lineage and see where like I came from my black belt who gave me my belt, and so it's pretty cool.
Oh, it's so cool. I find that so interesting, man. Like, it's like seriously, like no matter what city you go to, for the most part, there's going to be a jiu-jitsu gym with the name Gracie. There's going to be a different first name, but the name Gracie's going to be on there somewhere. And no, that I find that super fascinating as well. So how long?
So September was my 1 year, and let's see, I think my my uncle, my dad's brother, was the first one in our family to start doing it. And he started his son started in 2013. My uncle started in 2014. And my other cousin, 5 to 6 years ago. My dad started in 2017. And then my brother, Joe, he started 2 years ago in April. So his 2 years is coming up. But yeah, it was kind of crazy, like getting started. My brother was a wrestler growing up, so I got beat up constantly. And he went to our high school. He graduated in 2007, and it was a crazy thing to get started. And I never thought I would ever like want to be like touching sweaty people and have them touch me, and they're gross. And I honestly just thought it was like just a whole like huge sweat ball, and I was like, I don't know about that. But
Yeah, honestly, like I got so my background is football, as some people know, and that was honestly the thing I hated the most about football. It wasn't getting hit, it wasn't the pain, it wasn't any of that. It was literally just this touching,
oh
sweaty,
my
gross
gosh.
dudes. Literally, I couldn't stand it, and I think it would make me seem like a pussy on the mat. I think
Well, I
that's fair
still
to
hate
say.
it to this day. I've had people like drip sweat in my mouth. Like it's been a journey for sure to get over that. But yeah, so basically I just kind of joined. I got out of a really bad relationship, like physically, mentally, emotionally abusive relationship. So I told myself like I'm never gonna have anybody treat me that way ever again. So
Yeah, and that's like, man, I swear, and I know I know it's a complex issue, and it's an issue with more a nuanced answer. There's not like a one size fits all answer, but God damn it, do I think more abused women should go to a jiu-jitsu class? It seems like that would, I don't know. I would love to see some of these motherfuckers, get their elbows snapped next time they try something stupid for real. But man, that's man, like seriously, just hats off, because that type of stuff unfortunately is so common in our society that I think almost everybody watching knows a woman that's been in an abusive relationship or has witnessed that in some capacity, and we've all seen people deal with that in very unhealthy manners. And it seems like you kind of dealt with it in about as healthy a manner as you could possibly do, and you ended up finding something you love in the
yeah, it
process.
was one of those things where I never thought it was going to happen to me, and so I stuck through it, and I shouldn't have. And honestly, jiu-jitsu really did save me from that, and it's a great way to get your physical activity in, and
wow.
You leave so sweaty, and it's honestly just like a great workout. And I never thought I would be here to this day, but I love it.
No, and it's so sick, and I'm honestly just so stoked when you reached out to me, because I've been watching this journey from afar, and your journey has kind of coincided with my MMA podcast journey. And you started a little bit before, but I've always been a fan of MMA regardless, even years before my podcast started. And I've been kind of, we've been friends on social media, and I'm like, oh, that's dope. She does jiu-jitsu. And by the way, my wife's a big fan too, because my wife wants to get into jiu-jitsu too, but all the gyms and stuff are still closed out here. We're on the West Coast, but so she she sends her respect and her love as well. But
she's the cutest little. Oh, I love her so much.
oh yeah, shout out to Wifey,
Yes.
shout out to Nina. But yeah, she wants to hit the mats as soon as kind of whenever, if this thing ever finally blows over. We actually live in our neighborhood. There's a jiu-jitsu gym within walking distance, a block and a half up the street. But like I said, it's been closed this whole time. We're in the Bay Area with some of the strictest lockdowns. So yeah, that type of stuff is definitely not I haven't been to even a normal gym, a 24-hour fitness. I haven't
That's
been
insane.
since March. Yeah, like you may notice that I started I skateboarding, and I post little skateboarding clips. I mainly started skateboarding because I was getting fucking fat. All the gyms were closed.
Hey, you gotta do those
still and everything.
reviews,
I got to keep the burrito reviews coming. Exactly. I needed a way to like burn off calories. And so like, I kind of like how, you know, you fell in love with jujitsu. I kind of fell in love with skateboarding, just kind of by default needed something to stay active. But something I wanted to get into a little bit with you is like, so like, I greatly like respect jujitsu, and I'm like falling in love with the jujitsu from afar. I've never rolled the mats myself, but um, like I view jujitsu through the lens of MMA. As you know, I have my MMA podcast, that Beefy Boys Breakdown, and I've been just balls deep in UFC fights for the past like 9 months, and like I said, it's like a lot of like I think it's a fairly common art of MMA fans to where when you first start watching MMA, you want every fight to just be like a slugfest, knock 'em dead, but then just the more you watch and the more you learn and the more you just take it in, you start to learn those intricacies of all the little movements on the ground, and you appreciate a good grappler, and I don't know. So like I said, I am learning about jiu-jitsu through the lens of MMA and the UFC. And I just kind of wanted to talk to you about kind of because you entered jiu-jitsu through jiu-jitsu. Like some people enter jiu-jitsu on the path of MMA, and some people enter jiu-jitsu like as its own entity. And I kind of just wanted to talk to you about the kind of relationship between jiu-jitsu and MMA, and kind of the differences, even maybe like there's a different way to practice it if you're training for the cage, or if you're, I don't know, just talking about that
absolutely.
a little bit, if you will.
Growing up, we always watched UFC. My dad and my brother were huge UFC fans. I mean, I watched the pay-per-view, you know, with Conor McGregor this was it like 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah,
R.I.P. Conor on that one. Dustin knocked him up a bit, and I said it's over. So, but really, like starting, getting super interested in jiu-jitsu, I started like listening to all the terms because it's like a foreign language whenever you first start jiu-jitsu. Like I had no idea what a crossface was, or like shrimping or anything like that. And so there's literally so many different like terminologies, and then there's like the traditional like Kimura, like all these different Japanese names for it. And so we have a couple of black belts who we've done seminars with before, and they use the black belt terms and all the fancy terms, and I'm like, what? But I've started.
Yeah, well, even the name jujitsu is Japanese. It's for those that don't know the history of it. It took me a while to learn this myself because I always was confused because jujitsu, like just the name of it, sounds Japanese, and then names like Kimura, obviously Japanese of origin, and then but you always hear it associated with Brazil, and I eventually learned the history of how it came from Japan to Brazil, and it's kind of like a fusion of those cultures. Both of those cultures have left their imprint on it, but continue. But yeah, I just want to kind of break that down for some viewers that may not know kind of how is this Japanese sounding thing so associated with Brazil. It confused me for a long time too.
So I really started paying attention to all of the words and the dialect of it, and I kind of got really obsessed with it. Started following all these pages on Instagram and Facebook. I went to like 2 seminars before COVID actually like killed everything. But I really just was watching like UFC, and like my dad, he loves to just throw up old matches of random people and be like, hey, did you see this? Like we learned this in class last night and stuff like that. So having a family who's really like into it really just like made everything so much better and gave me like a fully rounded sense of like learning the sport and stuff like that. And so yeah, it was my first year in September, and I actually competed in my first tournament, which was like the craziest thing I've ever done. Honestly, I didn't have the mental confidence that, you know, comes with the physical confidence. My brother Joe was like, you should have done the tournament in March. You would have won like all this stuff. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I actually went out and I won my first tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you were telling me. That's a dope experience to say that you worked towards something and
Yeah.
then you came out on gold your
It
first
is.
time. That's not an experience many people can say. There you go, flex your shit. So explain to me, like, what tournament was this? Like what division or like I'll be real, I don't know the first thing about even how jiu-jitsu tournaments are formatted or anything. So just kind of talk to me about jiu-jitsu tournaments in general and then kind of get into this
Yeah,
specific
so this
jiu-jitsu
tournament
tournament.
was American Grappling Federation, so AGF. So there's AGF, there's IBJJF, and there's just a few different tournaments that are set up around the country. This one was supposed to be in Oklahoma City in September, but turned out to be in Tulsa, actually. And I went into it under 175. So I was a white belt. Right now I'm a green belt, which is like a upper level white belt. But for those people who don't know, it
Okay.
goes white, green, blue, purple, brown, black. So
I was literally gonna ask that. I've always
yeah,
been so
I never
curious.
knew it until I started doing jiu-jitsu, and it takes approximately 10 years to get a black belt. So we've got time, but
Yeah, that's what's so crazy because especially being a UFC fan and covering the UFC as I do, like you just hear that term like get thrown around almost loosely, like, oh yeah, this guy's a black belt, that guy's a black belt, and I just don't think the average, as they say, casual fan, just really understands just they don't just hand those
no,
things
definitely
out.
not. Some schools do, like, you have to pass tests, and some some classes, gyms, they'll just hand out stripes. I'm actually a two-stripe green belt, and the rest of my family are blue belts. So I definitely get beat up all the time during practice, but it's so well worth it.
Yeah, no, I bet. Is that what so in a jiu-jitsu practice, or do you spend most of your time essentially getting beat up and like learning on the fly, or like is it like
So
trial by
basically, we
fire?
have every gym is different, but at my gym, Titan Martial Arts in Norman, that's my home gym. Um, we basically do like 30 minutes of drilling. So we are taught a few different basically movements, or a combination of movements. And then so we drill that for about 30 minutes, and then we'll go over like how to get out of it and like how to defend it and stuff like that. And then we'll do 5-minute rounds we'll do about 5-minute rounds of just continuously like different partners and just going at it.
And for any MMA fan out there, five rounds. I mean, that's championship, level of cardio. And shout out to Cooper Mead, bro. I appreciate you coming in and watching live. I try to get to comments, and try to work them in through the fabric of the show. But I appreciate you watching in, brother. It's hard for me to respond to everything, but I appreciate everybody watching live. But yeah, so. And also, I want to get
Yes.
back to this tournament. We're not about to gloss over that like that's just some small little deal. You won gold on your first tournament. You said it was under 175, so that's a wide. And I assume you're talking about
Yes.
pounds, as in
So the
weight
crazy
class,
thing
correct?
was I got into that bracket, but I actually had to move up in weight because there was no one in my bracket. So I was going up against the girls. It was like 180 and above.
That's so wild, and just I don't want to place that in context for the viewers because the largest weight class in women's UFC
Yeah.
is 145. 145 is the absolute biggest. Now, other promotions do have bigger women's bouts and everything like that, but as far as like I think Invicta has like heavyweights and stuff for women, but as far as the UFC goes, and you know that's the biggest promotion on earth. The biggest women allowed to fight are 145 pounds. So in Mary, in her very first tournament was you know taking on women much bigger than any women allowed to fight in the UFC. So that's crazy just for context. Let me ask you though, and I'm going to try to word this in like the least way possible. Like I gotta figure at a certain point the weight cut off kind of just like hurts your cardio. I'll word it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is probably less in shape people at a certain point, right? Or was there some 180-pound fucking stack
Well,
house
it's funny
monster?
because going into it, I knew one girl from my gym here in Edmond, Oklahoma, at Prodigy Jiu Jitsu in Edmond, and I'd never rolled with her before, but I knew who she was. Shout out Julie, she's amazing. I fought her for gold because I had to buy my first round, thankfully. But there was another girl. They were both, I believe, over 200. And so I was 175 and they were 200 and quite a bit taller than me as well. So Julie's about 5'11", I think, and Shayna, the other girl that I competed against, she was about 5'6", 5'7", and I'm only 5'4", so yeah. Yeah.
No, that's awesome though. That's cool because the thing that's crazy about a number weight limit is like a number can look so different. Like I weigh about 225 right now, but there's guys that weigh 225 with six packs, and there's guys that are like obese at 225. You know what I mean? Like how different people wear a number, like different body types are totally a factor. So that gets interesting, you know, and it happens like I'll keep referencing the UFC because that's what I know best. Like there's some heavyweights that are 6'11" and skinny fighting a guy that's 5'11" and stockier, you know. So how weight is distributed can vary, but so I don't know. I've always found that very interesting in combat sports.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I'm one of those people who I am all about rolling with men. Because sometimes I don't think that women give me enough, strength, I guess. So, I mean, okay. But you know what I'm saying? So I went into it basically like I fight with my brother and I fight a lot, but in a good way. I roll with my brother. He is about 5'10", 170. My dad is 5'10", 185 right now. And there's guys way bigger than them at the gym. And the funniest thing is saying the most dangerous person in the gym are white belts, not black belts, because white belts will flail and they'll just not know what to do with their body. So they're the most dangerous in the gym for sure. But I like to, help people out whenever they first get to the gym and show them a little bit that I didn't know my first couple of days. Because I've left crying, I've left beaten up, I've just like sweating and everything. Like there's emotion that goes into it too. And, not getting a stripe or not advancing in a belt, it's the mental thing of jiu-jitsu. And a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what I've heard so many people describe is just the 3D chess. Everybody, like almost everybody describes jiu-jitsu as 3D chess. And it makes a lot of sense whenever you see high-level grapplers going at it. Like just recently, like when Charles Oliveira submitted Tony Ferguson and almost broke his arm. Actually, Tony Ferguson's an absolute insane man for surviving that arm bar. But just watching guys, those high level grapplers, you understand what they mean because you're one step ahead. You're like beating them to the spot almost, and I love watching guys that can scramble effectively and just kind of float on top and kind of counter on the ground. So let me ask you, in these tournaments, are they point based or do you have to
Yeah,
submit your
so
opponent?
it's point based and submission. I beat my opponent, Shayna. I think 31-9. All 5 minutes. I went all 5 minutes with her. That was so tough. I actually busted my ankle, and it still hurts to this day. So this is back in September. So my adrenaline was going up so high, and I busted my ankle right before the gold match, and I was really struggling pretty hard. I was up on Julie for gold with like, I want to say like less than 30 seconds left, and she tapped out because she actually hurt her elbow in the no gi matches the morning of.
So were you in a submission when she said like did you make her submit or she submitted just her elbow was fucked up?
She tapped because I was doing it, but I think it was just pain in general, honestly. But hey.
So what did you have her in?
I was on mount, so and then I just had her arm stretched out with my other arm. I could have basically gone for a key lock, but she tapped to it, so.
Hell yeah. No. Well, that's what's up. I love hearing the intricacies and what works and what doesn't work. Cause I mean, it's so, I just, like I said, I mainly watch through an MMA lens, but I've just seen so many crazy things happen, in submissions. I always love hearing these stories firsthand. And, so Cooper's saying that he's one of our viewers. He said he's about to be in Tahoe, and you were just in Tahoe, and I'm currently doing this live from South Lake Tahoe, California. And so, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I always want to spread the gospel of how amazing Tahoe is, but it's cool to have people that actually relate for once. How was your time in Tahoe? What are your takeaways? This is my favorite place on earth. Now, granted, I'm not the most well-traveled man there is, but out of the places I've been, I'll fucking take Lake Tahoe. I think me and Nina are going to move to Carson City 30 minutes up the road, here within the year. So, Lake Tahoe stole my heart. I love it up here. How was your time?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. So, last weekend was my birthday. I just turned 24. I was with my lovely boyfriend, Logan. He lives in Florida, and so we usually see each other about once a month. I either fly to Florida, he comes to Oklahoma, or in this instance, so we went to Reno so I could meet his dad and his stepmom, Brian and Michelle, and I had such a great time, and they showed us around Reno, Nevada, and we took a trip right up to Truckee, California. It was really cool, and you guys got so much snow. It was crazy.
Yeah. So I've been essentially splitting time between San Jose and Lake Tahoe lately this past couple of months, and this is the most snow I've seen. Even though I've been here a lot this winter, this is the most snow.
It was so funny because we really didn't think that we were going to be able to fly in on Wednesday night because the snow was literally coming down so hard. I don't know how many inches you guys got, but it was so much, and we were really.
I think not even inches. I think they had to measure it in feet. Yeah, I think they got 5 feet.
It was so much snow, and it was just great. And we went snowshoeing. And unfortunately, we didn't get to go skiing. My boyfriend is actually an amputee. He's a below the knee amputee. He lost his leg whenever he was 3 in a boating accident. Yeah.
Wow. You know what you need? You need to get his ass on the tubes. They got the tubes, and that shit's free. Hey, take it from me as a Tahoe veteran. The tubes, you can tube, because you lay down on the motherfuckers. And so I got on the tubing thing, and it was essentially made for kids and shit. But I got my big 220 ass on there, and I literally knocked over the fence that's supposed to stop you. They have all these mats laid down to take away your speed as you're approaching. I was it was like Norbit. I just fucking went right through them shits. I almost went off the side. but I'm just saying, I think that's something that even, differently able people can still enjoy is the tube. And I think you may get a kick out of
it
that
was
next
so
time.
fun.
But,
He actually dislocated his knee on his amputated leg last time he went
oh
skiing.
no.
So he was like, I love you, but I don't want to go skiing. So it was, I still had a blast. And honestly, if I were to have gone skiing, it would not have been as much fun without him. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually kind of experienced that, obviously not the exact same reasons, but so I've been snowboarding like 2 times in my life. Now, granted, it was like 10 years ago, but I had been. And then about a month or two ago, me and Nina went snowboarding over at Boreal, which is like on the north side of Tahoe. And so like I pretty much knew what I was doing. I'm not gonna say I'm good, but like I can like make my way down the mountain. And it was Nina's first time ever. So it really was this weird dynamic of like me trying to balance like teaching her with still kind of trying to have my fun too, So it can be for those couples out there thinking of going on a ski trip. It's really doper if you are both can kind of go on the same pace. But no, and man, honestly, half of the best part of skiing at Tahoe is the views you get of Tahoe. So even like, the fact that you got to see some of the views, I mean, everywhere you look looks like a fucking calendar or a screensaver.
Yeah, it was so
cool.
I mean? So one thing about me, I hate birds. I absolutely hate birds. Yes.
Like all birds? Just fuck birds? Fuck aviators?
I
fuck
can't.
aviators?
I'm not scared of them. I just really just dislike them. I mean, penguins and flamingos, pterodactyls, all of those are cool. But, like I even have a shirt that says birds aren't real. So I'm just kidding.
Oh
but we had like bird seed and like the little chickadee birds like would come out and like just like eat the food right out of your hand, and that was a lot for me. But
let's say so you pretty much tortured yourself
for amusement of all the other people around me. But hey.
No, that's awesome. Like I said, it's not like I usually try to describe how dope it is to my guests, but I finally have a guest that has experienced it. So yeah, I definitely want to touch on that. And yeah, you were talking to me a little bit, when we were messaging leading up to this about you guys work with veterans through the We Defy Foundation. You want to talk a little bit about that?
The We Defy Foundation has been like a huge part of like my dad and my brother. So Alan Shabaro is a jiu-jitsu practitioner in Texas, and he actually started, this foundation since my dad is a veteran. He was in the Army for 19 years. So I super duper look up to my dad and, his service that he had in the military. The We Defy Foundation, basically their mission statement says, we provide combat veterans coping with military-connected disabilities a long-term means to overcome their challenges through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and fitness training.
That's awesome, and I'm sure it's probably a mixture of both. But are they more trying to overcome physical or
it's
mental
both,
things?
Honestly. I have a few. There's a guy at our gym. His name is Adam. He's I think he's an amputee, so he has he's double below knee, I believe. He trains at our gym.
Wow.
And they do a lot of like outsourcing, and they go and do seminars, and they have all these amazing opportunities for veterans to, it's really, like I said, the mental game of jiu-jitsu, but then you have to come back. PTSD is a real issue with veterans.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's one of those things where you can learn how to cope with life and the challenges of physically being able to do something, as well as the mental side of it too.
Yeah. I've never heard somebody describe anything to do with jiu-jitsu and not mention the physical and mental and how they're tied at the hip. Like everybody that knows anything about jiu-jitsu just says the same. It's just a reoccurring thing you hear when you talk to jiu-jitsu practitioners or anybody that even knows about jiu-jitsu, just the mental and physical and how it joins at the hip. And now, I hate to do this to you, but I would extend you this same courtesy if you need it at all. I need to use the restroom, so I'm going to be right back. You can take a break. You can talk about jiu-jitsu. You can do whatever you need to do.
Cool.
I'll be
take
right
a break
back.
too.
I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back.
All right, intermission's over.
Intermission's over. It's all good. Everybody thinks that it's like a cardinal sin to take a pee during a podcast, but what's the point of just being uncomfortable? Like, because I noticed myself, like when I was first starting this podcast shit, I would like be trying to hold it, and I'd be like answering like short as fuck, just like like that. It's not worth it. Let's just
Yeah,
both be comfortable
absolutely.
here.
Well, right now I'm finishing.
But yeah, man, I honestly said, once again, I'm so glad you were able to join me. And like I said, I've been kind of following your journey from afar and just thought it was dope as fuck. So the minute, the opportunity like to talk this and share this with my viewers, I had to jump on the opportunity, and I appreciate you. This isn't even something I had written down, but it's something that just has been in the headlines lately. And I wanted to get your opinion on more than anybody's. I've been honestly biting my own tongue because I wanted to hear what you had to say about it. So Stephen A. Smith, we all know, fucking rainbow hairline, loud screaming, fucking hot take McGee, Stephen A. Smith on ESPN. The MMA community has been mad at Stephen A. for a long time. He usually comes with like dog shit, casual takes. But anyway, what I'm getting at, he recently said, I don't even know if you caught this or not, but he recently said that he's not a fan of women's MMA. He personally doesn't like watching women hit each other in the face. I'm the exact opposite. Like, I love women's MMA, sometimes even more than men's. And, like, there's, like, physical and philosophical reasons why. Like, dead ass, I love watching women in the Muay Thai clinch because every time guys get in the Muay Thai clinch, it's just knees to the dick for days. Every time, like it doesn't matter how good the fighters are, and then there's 5-minute breaks, and everybody's getting kneed in the dick. Women, you quite simply don't have to worry about that. And not only that, their knees can get higher. So it's very rare that you see men in a Muay Thai clinch knee to the face. It's usually knees to the body, hence all the dick shots. But when women get in the clinch, you see the hips are so flexible, the knees, so that's one reason. And when the women are on the ground, you see the hip flexibility that you would never see shit that happens in men's fights on the ground happen. The women's hip flexibility, it's like literally an added variable. So like I personally love women's MMA, and I like the fight of the year last year was Wei Li and Joanna. So and Stephen A. pissed off the MMA community by saying he wasn't a fan of. So I want, and I know you don't do MMA, you do jiu-jitsu, but as a female who practices a combat sport, what are your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith's take of, he doesn't like watching girls in combat?
Well, we can always compare, like women's MMA to women's basketball and men's basketball, women's tennis to men's tennis and all that stuff. Honestly, growing up, I was never like, oh my gosh, I want to watch the girls fight, because I've always looked at it as a male-dominated sport. And that's just the world we live in. But honestly, Amanda Nunes has changed my mind on everything. Female UFC MMA fighter. I love her. She
Okay, I gotta pause you real quick. Amanda Nunez, low key, birthed the Beefy Boys breakdown straight up. So not everybody knows that. It was before I even officially knew what I was doing, but it was like UFC 250, I think, and I was hella drunk, and I just watched Nunez defend her belt. It was her most recent fight. And I just like randomly went live on Instagram and was hella wasted, like talking about how Nunez was the GOAT and you better put some respect on her name and all this shit. And that's essentially how the Beefy Boys breakdown was birthed. Because then after I went live, Harrison messaged me and was like, hell yeah, bro, I agree with all that shit. He was drunk too. And that was the birth of the Beefy Boys breakdown. So shout out to Amanda Nunez. There would be no Beefy Boys breakdown if it wasn't for women's MMA. And I apologize. I said, please continue, but I love it.
No, I love it. Well. Harrison, I've known Harrison for a really long time. And I love it that like we get to chat, you know, we're from high school we went to high school together. And it's just so funny to see like where we're at in life now. Just like, I don't know what Harrison's up to, but I know Connor Klein, you had him on. Yeah, he's known me and for a while because of high school, and I think our brothers grew up together too. But Harrison actually dated my neighbor, so we knew each other a long time.
Okay. Yeah. So part like so like first off, I was a podcast fan. I love watching podcasts. Ask my wife, I always have them on. That's why it's like sometimes I have to remind myself that not everybody spends all their time watching podcasts. But that's how I was. I like literally, I like hardly ever watch like TV shows. Like I always have on YouTube more than my cable, even though I'm paying all that money for cable. And anyway, and so I'm a big podcast fan, and I saw how all my favorite people, all my favorite podcasters, just all they really did was they had a platform and they had all these interesting people that they knew, and they had their platform to elevate all these interesting people that they knew. And I was like, dude, I know so many interesting people, and I know some people may get annoyed that almost all my guests are from Norman, Oklahoma, but like I swear to God, that's what like birthed this podcast was like. Literally, I come from like what people consider a small town, Norman, Oklahoma. You know, I currently live in a city of over 1 million people, and so not people may think like, oh, Norman, Oklahoma. I know so many talented people that like the world needs to know about from Norman, Oklahoma, and so it's like I just saw these people like using their platform to like showcase all their talented friends, and I'm like, dude, I have super talented friends, and I don't know. It came naturally to me. And like I said, as soon as I saw what you were doing, you fell perfectly into that category. Like I said, I mean, I wanted to get like a female, whether it be grappler or a fighter or whatever. I've been dying. And I think compared to most other fucking podcasts, especially in my lane, I do a pretty good job about getting women on my podcast.
Yeah.
Like I really try to make a point because the podcast, like, trust me, as a fan and as somebody who does them, you fellas out there with podcasts, you need to get more ladies on because just the perspective they offer, you know, it's just, you know, you're not going to find it when you're talking to a bunch of dudes. But yeah, you know, we've kind of gone down some rabbit holes. Now I want to ask you because, like, I don't know, just because this is how my brain works. Have you ever trained any striking? And B, is there an MMA future in Mary Springfield crystal ball?
Oh my gosh. I have, with my degree, my undergraduate degree, we did lots of different group exercise classes. So I've been in a kickboxing class. I've done, you know, all this stuff. I do not like getting punched in the face. You know, like I said, my brother, I got beat up all the time. And like I said, he was a wrestler. So I grew up with like 13 older brothers, basically. So getting beaten up is kind of my thing, I guess. And I do not like getting punched in the face.
But I gotta ask you, have you ever been punched in the face by a female that weighs the same as you? If you've been growing up fighting your brothers, you may eat, you know what I'm saying, 150-pound woman's punch like
Well,
it's nothing.
I think in like middle school, I punched a girl because she like took some of my stuff. I mean, I got suspended. It's like, it is what it is, but you know, who cares? I was like 12.
Hey, I was the ultimate middle school thug. You don't gotta tell me about
Yeah,
that.
well,
I know that life. Gang,
my
gang.
best friend Tia, she's on the U.S. Paralympic sitting volleyball team. She was born without her right hand, so she just hasn't. We just call her Nub. That's the PC correct term to do it. But she really loves. She actually trained one class of Jiu Jitsu with me and my family, and she loved it. She's a very feisty girl. She weighs like 100 pounds, and she's like 5'7", so she's like this smallest girl, and she loves beating people up, and she loves kickboxing and taking boxing classes. So I may follow in her footsteps to go hang out with her in one or two classes, but probably no MMA for me.
Probably not. I feel you. Because who does like it? I've been punched in my face. Take one look at this nose, and this is a man that's been punched in the face a time or two. But I get it. I really do. But I gotta say, you know, I was hoping, you know, in my back pocket, like I got the next contender right here, because like I gotta ask, like there's girls or women such as like two of my favorite female UFC fighters are dope jiu-jitsu practitioners. And by the way, I gotta say, I love that you say practitioner instead of player. Me and Harrison go in on BP boys all the time when they say, "Oh, I'm a jiu-jitsu player." It sounds so awkward and just horrible. I hate that's like verbal garbage. Like, I'm a former English major. That's like English vomit. Like, jiu-jitsu player sounds horrible. Practitioner is the term we will go with. But yeah, no, I gotta say, I don't know. I think because so what I'm getting at is here, two of my favorite female UFC fighters are Jillian Robertson and Lauren Murphy. Are you familiar with them? Yeah. So like, because they're essentially known for their grappling. Like they do Chael Sonnen's like submission underground. Now let me ask you this: like, would you do something like that, like where it's like grappling only, like Chael Sonnen's submission upper?
There are so many of those like pop-ups. Actually, my brother is fighting at the OKC Farmers Market on February 28th. And he is competing against some guy. I think he's in the 175 blue belt, but it's no gi, so they just wear basically, or I think he's doing gi. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but he is, you know, competing and stuff like that, and it's totally different from the IBJJF and the AGF like tournaments, and it's going to be really fun to watch my brother do that. He hasn't done one of those. He's done an AGF and
different how?
Let me look it up. It's honestly on Facebook. So
okay, yeah, no worries, because I'm curious myself. No worries, no worries, not to me to put you on the spot. And I'll just kind of talk while you're looking that up, because I just wanted to say that, like, I personally think like grappling is like on the rise as far as like sports popularity. Like, I think probably women's high school wrestling is probably the fastest growing like high school sport. That's majorly on the rise, and I think women's jiu-jitsu, because there's a lot of guys like me out there that like were UFC fans and we're fans of the women's UFC fighters, and a lot of these women's UFC fighters get their start doing jiu-jitsu and grappling, and I think it's just kind of like a carryover effect of like, I never thought I'd be interested in women's grappling, but here I am, kind of through osmosis, thoroughly interested in women's grappling.
So my brother's 31, and he has a 5-year-old daughter, and she is doing jiu-jitsu now, and she just got her
That's amazing, by the way. And I grew up going to school with your brother's wife and the daughter's mother. And so I've never met this child, and I have so much love for this child. And when I saw she was doing jiu-jitsu, I was like, God damn it. And by the way, way to give Nina baby fever for real, seeing that. But yeah, no, I absolutely love seeing that. And I have to give a huge shout out to Megan and your brother, and just seeing that. I don't know, like I said, I grew up with Megan, and just seeing kind of all this come to fruition it's a beautiful
so here's
thing.
a picture
really
of her. This is her getting her first stripe. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Shout out.
Feisty little girl, and she loves gymnastics, so she loves, you know, just being active and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of crazy, you know, Megan, my brother's wife, her sister and I graduated together, Courtney. So it's great to have, you know, a family who's interested. And Courtney's tried jiu-jitsu with my family and I before too, and she loved it. It's a great workout. And honestly, going back to females in, you know, UFC and jiu-jitsu, now I'm just like, I look forward to it. Like you said, like I love watching them because the dynamic is so different. The pace is different, the flow is different, the punches and the grappling are completely different, because with women, you can be a really strong, capable woman, but at the same time, the technique is going to outweigh strength every time.
Yeah, and I want to take our viewers down a little history lesson real quick for those that don't know. How the reason why jiu-jitsu has rose to prominence in mixed martial arts and really in America in general is really comes down to this guy named Royce Gracie. And hardcore MMA fans and UFC fans know this name. And so what happened was, back in the original OG UFC days, and me and Harrison always talk about this on the podcast, how like back in the day, you'd find like VHS tapes behind the beams, like next to the pornos. Like it was like UFC was like this like sketchy, dodgy thing that you didn't want people to know you were into. You know? And everybody was on like juiced to the gills on Mexican supplements, you know what I'm saying? And there was no USADA, and everybody was on fucking cocaine and anabolics. And it was the Wild West. And there was no weight classes, and there was not even any like uniform mandates. Like some guys wore shoes, some guys wore gloves. It was the Wild West. It literally looked like something out of like a shitty 80s movie. And there was no weight classes. That's the main exclamation point. I know it's hard for people to even fathom no weight classes, but there was no weight classes. And so there was all these like juiced up 240-pound like fucking roided out freaks. And then there was this little Brazilian man, about 160 pounds, something like that. Nothing like the small man, especially back in the no weight class days. Maybe 175, dripping wet. But anyway, he was a smaller guy, and he came in and he beat all these roided out monsters with no rules. And I mean no rules, like legitimately no rules, not even any rounds. It was the Wild West. And this little kind of not buff, not scary looking, like the least intimidating guy there, just looking at their pictures, was dominating the early days of the UFC. And that man's name was Royce Gracie. And we referenced that earlier in the podcast, that almost every town has a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and it all descended kind of from this one man's legacy. But I just kind of want to take the, you know, for the viewers that don't know, you know, in the words of Dana White, if you don't know, now you know. I just had to kind of take them down that little memory lane real quick. But yeah, you know, please continue.
No,
you know what
I don't even
I'm sorry
remember what we were
about
talking about before. But hey, I love the lineage stories.
No worries. We're just talking about like women's MMA, and you know, I'll transition to this question. You know, at your gym personally, what's like the female to male ratio? How many other women are you there?
We have a really good set of girls who are women who practice, and I want to say it's about maybe 3 to 1 men to women.
That's not as
Yeah.
bad as I thought it would be. That sounds like there's kind of a lot of women there.
We have actually, I've been to a few seminars. It's called Girls and Gis. It's an awesome ability to, you know, get just females in the gym. I did one actually this time last year, or around my birthday last year, before COVID, and there was a good, I want to say 60 of us there at the seminar.
And where was that? Oklahoma City or
Practitioner
Norman or where?
Yeah, it was tough to fit everybody in there, but there was ages from, I want to say like 13 to like 60 maybe. So there was, yeah, it was a great
That's
range.
awesome. And that seems to be another common thing that I've learned about jiu-jitsu. Like, a lot of people get into it later in life. Like, how I know that is one of my favorite podcasters and comedians, Joey Diaz, known as being an old fat fuck. He loves jiu-jitsu and he never misses a class.
I mean, my dad started whenever he was, let's see, 3 years ago. So yeah, he was 50 whenever he started.
See, I'll be real. I'll be real. I want to go to a class. I do. The thing is, I don't know if my body can handle jiu-jitsu and skateboarding. And like, I've kind of already gone down this rabbit hole that is skateboarding, and I love it. Nina's dead set on it though. Nina wants to learn. Nina, like, she makes me grab her when I have the UFC fights on. As I watch it, you have to watch all the fights now. And so she always makes sure you grab her for the straw weights, because Nina's, you know, itty bitty. She would have to put on weight to be a straw weight. But she always makes me like grab her for the straw weight fight so she can like see her competition.
She would be so good. I mean, it's honestly the little ones you want to look out for. On that profile photo that I sent you to be on the profile thing for today's podcast, that's Hanato Tavares. And
yeah, I was gonna ask you. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
He's shorter than me, and he's the scariest man I've ever met.
Oh yeah. No, those little guys are monsters. Like especially in the UFC. Like, I love watching the bantamweights and the featherweights, like 135, 145, because those guys are monsters. They really are. And yeah, no, that shit is so much fun. And that's good to hear. So it sounds like, I was going to ask you, so it sounds like there's like a decent little, and the word scene can be a little corny, but it sounds like there's a decent little scene of women's jiu-jitsu practitioners.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some really amazing training partners at my gym, and I'm actually really sad to not see them as much. I don't know if you saw my Facebook, but I just accepted a job in Dallas, Texas. So it's going to be different now. Jiu-jitsu is going to be different, but
I'm sure there's some great gyms down there in the Dallas area, though. They're cranking out a bunch.
Yeah. So my uncle.
Oh, your sound went away. I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. I can't hear you. Oh, all right. Okay, no worries. I can hear you now. You're good.
Down in Fort Worth, my uncle and his son and his wife practice at their gym, and it's run by a former UFC fighter, and it's just like they go so hard. And whenever they do classes, sometimes they have competition class, which means an hour of 5-minute rolls. You don't stop. If you get a drink or anything like that, you just need to leave. Like, it's competition class, and it's a Travis Luter's gym down in our Fort Worth. Yeah.
Oh wow! I was just on the newest episode of Rogan. He was just fucking riding Travis Luter's.
Yeah, Travis
that's amazing.
He's a really cool guy. He's
that's
super
really
down
cool.
to earth, and you know.
If you fucking meet Kevin Holland, like, I'm gonna need the selfie like ASAP. I'm gonna need you to tell him about Beefy Boys. Like, we're the biggest Kevin Holland fans, and I think Travis Luter's his jiu-jitsu coach. So I swear to God, I need you to plug that.
I'll do that. But I think my dad is watching right now, so my dad will definitely remember to do that.
Yeah, no, for real, Miss May. If you can connect me in any way with Kevin Trailblazer Holland, I'm the biggest fan. He's the motherfucking man. Hell yeah. No, that's so dope, man. So I gotta say, so you're moving to Dallas. Is that your first time leaving Oklahoma? I mean, like moving out of state.
My dad actually just commented that Kevin Holland was in class today with my dad. So.
Oh, shout out to your dad, Trailblazer.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
man.
One of those things. But anyways, yeah, I just got accepted to this job in Texas. I'm actually finishing my master's degree right now, so I'll have to do all that online. And
look at you just killing it. That makes me so happy.
Don Brockman's leadership class that we were in.
Yeah, no, hell yeah, I can believe it. No, for real. Like the sky's the limit. I love just hearing news like that, for real, because there's a lot of bad news you hear about people you went to school with, and this happened, that happened. So I'll take all the positive news I can get. I never doubted you for a second. You're killing it. What? Congratulations, for real.
It's kind of crazy.
Impressive.
I mean, hey, I remember painting posters with you in the old gym back in the stairwells whenever we had to do the big murals and stuff like that. And I just remember having a blast with you in class, and your mom cut my friend's hair, and it's just, it's full circle. It's a family affair whenever you're in Norman. So
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's exactly why I started this podcast, because there's just the whole 6 degrees of separation. How many I mean, I'll be really sad, as a guy who I watch a lot of podcasts, and I'm a fan of a lot of podcasters, and I'd be watching a podcast of oh, here's my interesting person, and it's man, I know people more interesting than that, and I just kind of decided to put my money where my mouth is and give it a shot, and I really love just the podcasting feels kind of the Wild West, as far as being able to truly state your opinion without censorship, and just being able to kind of do you, and just because I don't know, like I said, as somebody who watches a lot of podcasts, my favorite thing about podcasts is the authenticity. Whenever you're watching some cable news station, it's so overproduced and corny and repetitive. And whenever you watch a podcaster, it's oh, I feel like I've known this guy for fucking 15 years, because he's just keeping it real with me. And I said, that's kind of what I wanted to provide here with Dreadful Talk podcast. I gotta say, so you're part of the Oklahoma jiu-jitsu scene, and the state of Oklahoma has a great reputation as a wrestling state. Shout out, Oklahoma State wrestling programs, guys like Daniel Cormier, and Oklahoma high school wrestling, is some of the best in the nation. Do you find that a lot of the people that in the jiu-jitsu world are former wrestlers, or are those worlds kind of joined at the hip?
Yeah, so I told you that my brother was a wrestler. He was a state runner-up so
I knew
he was
that.
at 135 back in high school, so he was kind of tiny. But it's really interesting to see. We have some new people at the gym who are were high school wrestlers, and they just got out. And it's honestly one of those things that if you don't transition from high school to college, you miss it. You really do. And my brother did a few wrestling tournaments, old man wrestling tournaments, for people who just wanted to do it again and stuff like that, and see what they had. And honestly, things that you learn as a wrestler, my brother's a black belt in wrestling 10 times over, because he did it since he was 5. So he knows all the moves. The takedowns are seamless to my brother, and so whenever we have practices that we're doing single leg, double leg takedowns, my brother's leading the class, and all these things. And so having that wrestling background, my brother got his blue belt in 3 months. So, and that's kind of a big deal whenever you look at.
It kind of just accelerates the learning curve a little bit.
I find that we had a high school wrestler. I forgot her name, but she went to our classes a bunch, and she was at Noble High School. She was a wrestler there. So you find it a lot. Cool.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I thought of like, oh, the Oklahoma Jiu-Jitsu scene. I'm sure there's a bunch of wrestlers in there, which that's not like a bad thing. I'm just me knowing what I know about the state of Oklahoma. You know, there's a lot of wrestlers. Honestly, like dead ass. One of my biggest regrets, like I don't have many regrets from high school, like at all. But one of my only regrets was not wrestling. Straight up, I wish I would have wrestled. Mr. Maynes, me and him. First off, we couldn't get along. We squared up one time in the hallway, and I got freed from the fucking security camera because I was gonna get suspended because we literally like squared up, but the fucking security camera proved that he squared up first. So I was like, I ain't gonna have him square up, and I don't square up. That's just stupid. But anyway. But the reason why I never wrestled was he was gonna make me cut my dreads. He didn't let me that he wasn't having it, and so I mean I you know anybody that knows me knows I was.
Yeah, I know you just got a haircut and it looks really good.
Oh, I did. Oh man, I didn't even mention it. Yeah, this is like Dreadful Talk history. This is the first haircut I've had since 2005. I also have my roots done for the first time in forever. So yeah, just shout out to the dreads.
They've always looked good, even in high school.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
I don't know anyone who can grow dreads like you can, bud. Honestly.
Hey, but anybody that remembers them first original days, they look like shit for like 9 months. That's why like, anybody that like asked me my secret to success or anything about dreads, be like, man, I looked like a fucking bum for 9 months, and I just thugged it out. But anyway, you know, I have two more questions for you, and then I'll let you go about your night. I really appreciate all your time, for real. Do you have a favorite submission or like a favorite jiu-jitsu move?
We call it the Springfield, actually. Springfield surprise.
That's gangster as
So,
fuck.
You know, my brother and my dad and we usually go to the same class, like Tuesdays and Thursday nights, but it's hard for me because I'm working right now to, you know, get to class, but we're in side control, and we basically isolate the arm. I always go side control and have my legs out to their right side, so my left. So we're basically, I have my arm underneath their head here, and I'm driving my shoulder into their face, basically. And I take their arm and I put it underneath my leg, and it's basically just a straight arm lock, but you use your leg instead of your hands. So
have you ever seen that done in the octagon? Is there any UFC fighters that pull that off?
My brother taught me.
Is that because is it one of those things that if you can punch, it's not as effective?
I mean, UFC, like jiu-jitsu, like if you throw punches into jiu-jitsu, like there's no way that anyone could, you know, do what they can do in jiu-jitsu, because there's no face punching or no punching at all. So it's like, if I were to have my face that close to them, they would probably punch me in the face. But it really works in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, no, and I didn't say that, you know, in a snarky way, but there's just, because you'll see people that are black belts in jiu-jitsu, but they come over to UFC and sometimes they get beat up. And also another thing that most people don't take into consideration is the octagon itself. Jiu-jitsu takes place on a flat mat, and so whenever you get somebody bent up like that, it really limits like what you can do. One of my favorite things that I've seen recently, Anthony Lionheart Smith, he was for, I mean, the name's for slipping me right now, but he was one of those Dana White Contender Series hype train guys. But they were fighting, and he literally he had him taken down. He had him up against the cage, and he literally picked him up almost like a badass like little toddler. He like picked him up and dragged him to the middle of the octagon. That way he had more of his jiu-jitsu weapons, you know, at his disposal. And I don't know, that came to mind. That always jumped out to me, like that was high level, you know, jiu-jitsu IQ, knowing that he could, you know, do more, have more available to him in the open
hey,
mat.
I don't know if the Springfield Surprise is actually a real thing, but or a real move in jiu-jitsu, but my family and I do it, and we do it to each other, and we get each other with that all the time.
No, that's dope. That's beautiful. That's honestly better than any answer I could have imagined in my head. Your own last name. That's gangster as shit. I love it. Shout out to the whole Springfield family for real. And man, one final question, and it's mainly like it's an actual question I have. Like I said, my wife wants to get into it. I'm kind of, you know, kicking the tires on it. You know, is there a lot of injuries in jiu-jitsu?
Yes. So.
That's keeping it real.
I've gone into it with I have a torn labrum in my rotator cuff from a past volleyball injury in middle school, actually. So that's why I stopped playing volleyball in high school, and it was really tough to start jiu-jitsu because I was like, I got to take care of my shoulder. I got to take care of, you know, my ankles. Being a volleyball player, your ankles and your knees are already gone. So I told you during that tournament, I definitely messed up that ankle, and it just does not sit right anymore. It's one of those things. But my dad has had his teeth like basically kicked in almost. Black eyes.
I got some fucking, artificials
well, he
right
really
here.
has artificial teeth because he fell off a balcony whenever he was drunk and, you know, lost his front teeth, whatever. You know, he was young, so.
Gang.
And yeah, so like my dad, he's gotten black eyes. My dad's choked my brother dark once on accident. So it happens. It really does. Like I walk away sometimes and.
What about like leg locks and knee bars and shit? Do you see a lot of lower body injuries?
Yeah, definitely. Like if you go into it, you have to tell your partner like, hey, this is where I'm broken. Like just make sure like you know don't really mess it up even more, because you know the best.
Yeah, that's my biggest worry is like I have all these football injuries, like my knee and my shoulder, like that's what I've even noticed with skateboarding. Like everybody's like, oh, aren't you worried about getting hurt skateboarding? And it's like, honestly, the only thing that's happened since I started skateboarding is I made my old football injuries worse. Between my hands and my shoulder and my knee, like it's nothing that felt great before and then hurts now. It's just shit that used to hurt a little bit. Now it hurts a lot. So
yeah,
I feel like
it's
kind of similar.
Man, like my brother has always had back pain, just from being a wrestler. And, you know, just doing jobs and stuff like that. He's always had a bad back. And my dad actually has degenerative disc disease, which is just like chronic pain in your neck and your back and stuff like that. And he turned himself around and he does jiu-jitsu more than my brother and I do each week put together, honestly. So it's just one of those things where, you know, some days he wakes up and his neck is just like not right. I mean, we all have those days, but honestly, it's the pros outweigh the cons for sure, I think, honestly.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's all I had for you. I'm super stoked on this episode, and I'm so thankful for your time, and it's been great catching up with you. So I'm fucking rooting for you from over here on the West Coast, and you're killing it both in the classroom and on the mats, and I look forward to just seeing how far you take this and what you can do with it. And I mean, I'll be real, I wouldn't mind seeing you in that cave coming too. But hey, you know, I just want to leave it, you know, any last message you want to leave the audience with, or any, you know, pages you want to shout out or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to say thank you so much again. Like, I was so looking forward to this. I messaged you on Facebook and I was like, hey, this is a crazy shot in the dark, but I think it would just be so much fun to just hang out with you on a Wednesday night and chat it up. And we honestly haven't talked since high school, but I mean, we're on social media and stuff like that together, and it's been a long, wild ride with, you know, everything that's happened since high school, you know. But
definitely,
yeah,
myself
absolutely. Everybody
included.
that we know, honestly. We know people in the NFL, we know people in jail. Like, there's there's a lot of things going on. But We Defy Foundation, you can find them at wedefyfoundation.org. You can donate, you can be a volunteer, and you can actually rep their gear and stuff like that. So I love their organization. I love what they stand for, and it's just a great opportunity for veterans and people coming back from, you know, overseas to have a chance to do life again the right way. So yeah, thank you so much. I love talking to you guys. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, and I've loved having you on. You've been a fantastic guest. Anybody, my Instagram is @DreadfulTalkDom. I appreciate it if you go, go follow @DreadfulTalkDom on Instagram and Twitter. We have the Dreadful Talk Podcast YouTube page, and you can also find the Dreadful Talk Podcast anywhere you find your audio podcast as well. And since this is your jiu-jitsu based Dreadful Talk, I have a whole podcast dedicated to UFC fights and the MMA, and that's called Beefy Boys Breakdown. And Beefy Boys Breakdown, it has a YouTube. Please go subscribe as well. And it can be found on any audio platform as well. And support women's grappling, support women's jiu-jitsu, support women athletes. I think, actually, ironically enough, how crazy is it? I think today is like National Women's Athletes Day. So fucking, I didn't even plan that out, but it couldn't have gone smoother on that front. And I had a fantastic women's athlete on today. And yeah, like I said, Mary, you have a fan over here. Just keep me posted on all that you're doing, and like I said, I think what you're doing is great, and thank you so much for your time. This was episode, I think, 35 of Dreadful Talk, and we're gonna wrap this.
Thanks, Dom. See you soon, okay? You too. Bye.
Yeah, have a good one.